All right, we'll go ahead and kick this off here today. Thanks again for joining us here at Litho for How Higher Ed Content Teams Scale Accessibility Across Campus. We know for a lot of higher ed teams, these ADA deadlines are coming quick. You've been working towards them, hopefully. If you're not, you're in an okay place. We've got some wonderful presenters here today to talk to you a little bit about what they're doing at their schools. And hopefully you'll find yourself somewhere along that same spectrum that they're talking about as well. Before we kick it off, just some quick introductions. My name's Austin Wessel. I'm a manager of customer success here at Litho. But before joining the Litho team, I was a Litho customer at a higher ed institution who's also represented in our attendees here today. So hey to those of you joining from Trevecca. I was a marketing director there for about 2.5 years and implemented Litho, where we saw how Litho really impacted our small but scrappy team and allowed us to run and execute with confidence and freedom. So with that, I'm going to introduce our presenters. We've got Lindsay Gerard joining us from South Dakota State University Extension, and also Anna Ghiatti from Harper College. That's a community college in suburban Chicago. And actually, one quick thing before I let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about more their titles, their roles. Couple notes, we do have the chat active there. All of you are already in there, so that's awesome. We do have Q&A available as well. It's probably showing up in your Zoom toolbar somewhere, so make sure to use that. Drop in questions along the way. We'll try and answer those as we move through if they're relevant to what we're talking about at the time, or we should have some time at the very end for Q&A as well. This is being recorded, so we'll of course be sharing this out after this session is over today. So you'll be able to reference back to this later as needed. With that, Lindsay, I'm going to kick it over to you for quick introductions.
Good morning, everyone. As Austin said, my name is Lindsay Gerard. I'm based at South Dakota State University, which is a mid-sized university on the eastern side of South Dakota. I work specifically with our extension program. So we are the official outreach arm of the university. Every land grant institution has a cooperative extension system component. So we do all of the digital publishing for our faculty and staff as they work to make sure that the university's resources are available to everyone in the state of South Dakota. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Thanks, Lindsay. And Anna?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Ghiatti. As Austin said, I work at Harper College, which is a community college in suburban Chicago, northwest of the city. I am the marketing department at Harper, and we handle all of the external marketing from first time in college, youth programming, alumni relations, our educational foundation, business outreach, adult education, you name it. Everything about the college goes, from a marketing perspective, goes through our department.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, both of you, for being here with us today. We're excited about this conversation, excited to see where this goes. And I know from the little bit of conversation we've had with you already, both of you find yourselves somewhere on this spectrum of getting ready for these ADA regulations, right? Getting your universities up to speed and attempting to be as compliant as possible, right? Fully compliant is the goal, and as compliant as possible is where we might be right now. So where would you say that your institution currently stands with this ADA Title II and the WCAG 2.1 requirements that are now being mandated?
Anna, do you want to go first?
Sure. Right now we are, well, we're getting there as quickly as possible. We are just evaluating everything that is online, all of our digital marketing, which of course includes primarily the website, social media, et cetera. But we are getting there. We are evaluating and really, scrubbing the website for PDFs, making sure that those are, that we're taking those down, but really just evaluating what do we have out there, what needs to be compliant, and also assessing what we need to do going forward. So it's, not only reviewing what we currently have, but also um, making notes of what we need to do as we move forward.
Mhm.
But we are definitely in the we're in the process. Lindsay?
Same boat. I think PDFs are the biggest challenge for everyone. They definitely, um, it's a really good place to start because it's probably the biggest area for improvement. So we have tackled a lot of PDFs, but I think anyone who's done this for a minute will relate to this. You just feel like you've kind of got your arms around it and you're like, okay, here's our path. And then you're like, okay, and there's another 1,000 pages. And there's another website. So we're kind of in that spot right now. Continuously, we've made really great improvements. We've got a good roadmap for moving forward, but accessibility is not a goal per se. It's not something where you run across the finish line and then done. You have to address it continuously. So we're just gonna keep making improvements where we can and hopefully um, hit our goals by April 24th.
Mhm.
That's great context both of you shared there. I appreciate that. And I can resonate with a little bit of Lindsay, especially what you were just saying there about where you think you're getting close, and then all of a sudden you uncover this whole other, oh my goodness, what do we do with this? When I was a marketing director at Trevecca, we rebuilt our website from scratch, and we had a lot of accessibility conversations around that. But we also ran into a few of those. Oh, wait, you mean there's how many pages we haven't looked at yet?
Yep.
Those were fun times. Those were fun times. Um, so, I mean, there's just huge, huge volumes of content, right? And you've both kind of touched on the fact that this isn't a finish line. You're not going to cross this finish line one day and everything's just magically done and you're suddenly accessible. Now it's got to be baked into your everyday, right? Everything you produce moving forward, everything that's coming through your teams and through the university moving forward has to maintain this level of compliance in the future. So, thinking about that, how this has to be scalable, where you're going with this, with these mandates in place, huge volumes of content. What do you see as some of those biggest challenges in keeping everything accessible at scale?
Do you want to start or do you want
Yeah.
to?
We'll get good at this by the end.
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge at this point as we're heading into this key deadline is remediating all of the past materials and keeping up with current workflow as, everything keeps moving faster and needing to be done quicker. So as of 2026, that's our biggest pain point. But you asked specifically about, how you build this in going forward. And it's really getting everybody on board with understanding that workflows matter not just for us because it makes our lives easier, but it makes the entire process easier and better for everyone. Because having those workflows in place makes it so that we can put the right resources for the right people in the right point in the process. And they have those tools in their hands when they need them, and they're not being asked to do unnecessary work repeatedly because they didn't have the right tools at the right point in the process.
Yeah.
I would everything that Lindsay said. I think a lot of it is just wrapping our arms around, really around everything, identifying all the different assets and just chipping away as we can. I think Austin, you alluded to this, or maybe Lindsay, that's on top of all the other work that we're doing, which everybody on this webinar knows exactly what I'm saying. So, we have all our regular work and then, of course, this, really just, again, making sure that we are, scrubbing for PDFs, ensuring that, the website, anything digital is compatible with readers, making sure that we have a contrast of colors. So building all of that in, the text versus the background. So really just making sure that, we're device agnostic so that everything, no matter what platform we're on, that we're compatible, that we are meeting those the requirements. And then, like Lindsay said, building that into our process for our department to make sure that we don't have to reinvent the wheel
Yeah.
every single time. But it is a marathon.
Certainly is, certainly is. And yeah, I think both of you were smart to identify like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. This doesn't need to be a one-off process every single time. We need something that is scalable, repeatable, and future-proof, right? You've got to have
Mhm.
something that your team can get their arms around so that everything moving forward doesn't have to become this firestorm of, oh my gosh, now we have to fix it and make it compliant, as we may be doing a little bit of for all of our past work now, right? But how do we
Mhm.
bake that into everything that's still coming for all of those future projects? Um, Campus environments, lots of different stakeholders, lots of different types of people around campus. I remember that all too well. So with all of these distributed creators or contributors, perhaps constant revisions happening, or maybe they're going rogue and not sending things through revision. We've never seen that happen, right? How do you all find that you're tracking progress, roles around all of this, and any accountability to ensure that the entire university is moving in the same direction? Anna, I'm
I
gonna
can, yeah, I
kick
can
it to
jump
you this
on.
time.
So at Harper, the marketing department is only responsible for the marketing content. Um, we are not responsible for any other content or any other deliverables that other areas, other faculty members, other areas of the college, um, any other type of communications that they might be doing.
Mhm.
That being said, most things do go through our department, obviously, if it's a marketing initiative. On top of that, our web manager has been hosting amazing seminars on campus, multiple seminars on accessibility, college-wide. So this is what it means. This is why it's important. This is what you need to do to be compliant. This is how we can help you. This is what we won't be doing to help you. We won't be coming in and just taking it over, but really, truly teaching and helping guide the other members of our college on what they need to do and how they can make sure that their materials or communications are accessible. We do have a lot of areas within the college that manage their own areas of the website. So while our web team manages the entire website, individual departments will update their own individual sites and microsites.
Yep.
So really helping them understand what they need to do, what needs to happen. So that's really what we're doing, and just keeping track. I mean, my gosh, we all know everybody goes rogue. You find variety of things all over the place, but we really are making sure that everybody at the institution knows how important this is and what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Lindsay?
In that tracking, there are always two components. There's the building of the content, and then there's the platform where you deploy the content. And I had to laugh as I was prepping for this panel because I went back to my notes. I actually used accessibility as one of our justifications for purchasing Litho when the rules updated in 2017. And outlined how it was so necessary to have this workflow and defined governance and repetitive processes for producing content. And it is truer now than it was then. So appreciate Litho, of course. And then on our forward-facing websites, our university actually implemented a policy that we have to have an accessibility checker enabled on the site. So at our school, we're using Site Improve on our main sites, and that has been an absolute sanity saver because I'm not trying to get 25 people to agree on whether or not a page is accessible. Each page has a score. There's a really clear process defining like what are our biggest issues and how do we go about making those improvements. So that was that's a tremendous resource to have a neutral third party helping you to maintain that accessibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see a lot of value in that for sure. Um, do either of you, going a little off script here, so I hope this doesn't throw you off, but do either of your schools have like a central compliance office or a team maybe higher up in the school that's kind of monitoring compliance across the institution?
We have an officer. Um,
Okay.
we have one brand new position who is just doing absolutely incredible work, kind of bringing everybody together across campus.
Mhm.
And there is a multi-unit committee that includes, I think committee is the right word, but it's our marketing department, IT, our instructional design. It's got kind of everybody coming together to have those conversations because even though what tools we use in marketing will be different than what we use in our online course sites. You know, we all have
Yeah.
to use some different tools, but we're all working towards the same goal. And
Mhm.
having that centralized actually in our human resources department has been just incredible.
That's
Yeah,
great.
we, I, I'm not sure if we have an actual, dedicated person, but we definitely, it does fall underneath, our HR and working in tandem, not only our department, but then IT. And then we also, which I'm sure most other colleges and universities have, we have an access and disability
Mhm.
services department. So looping them in to make sure that, they are part of that conversation as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I could definitely see how having those officer or office or any combination along that, whatever that looks like within your school, but having that point person or that point team to sort of own this across the entire institution so that, like you said earlier, Anna, you all are responsible for the marketing channels of this compliance, right?
Mhm.
You're not owning everybody else's.
Right.
Somebody has to though, right? Otherwise it's the Wild West out there, and
Yeah.
that could get real messy real fast. Um, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, Lindsay, when you were talking about how you actually used some of this to justify LIFO, which that was awesome. Thank you for that. But what other changes what changes or what does that process look like of how you've kind of now baked this in, right? So moving from these one-time remediations, these fixing everything in the past, to making this more repeatable and sustainable to keep these accessibility practices top of mind.
We've tried a lot of things that didn't work, but that's a story for another day. So, two things that I think have helped us make the most gains are that we tried to combine standards where possible. So, one of our team members wrote for our team a combined content standards document that included branding and accessibility. So of the university colors, which ones actually work in which combinations for contrast. Same thing with finance and accessibility. Some of our PCI rules are a little bit hard to implement on a forward-facing site. So making it so that it's not separate buckets that we have to try to maintain, but putting them all together. And then also in our workflows, whenever we added accessibility steps, so especially when it comes to making PDFs accessible, we were intentional about tracking how much time that took and then trying to adjust project timelines accordingly because it does take much, much longer to go through and do that final accessibility tagging on those PDFs than it does on, just putting up a page that is already accessible because we locked the website down, so it has to be. So
Yeah. You mentioning the brand colors and the contrast and things, I actually was just talking with another one of our higher ed customers earlier this week, and he said they recently did just that exact same thing. They did a brand refresh late last year, I think it was now. And through that process, they took a look at all of their brand colors, some of which they wondered, the team that's in place now wondered, how did these ever get here to begin with? And then they made sure that they had color combinations that were accessible moving forward, both for digital and print. He said, obviously, through all these things we're working through right now and talking about here on this webinar today, this is all digital focused, but there are some standards for print, although not as stringent perhaps. But that's something their team is trying to balance as well. So
Yeah.
it's funny how all of these conversations come full circle and these themes pop up all over the same places, right? Anna, how about you all? Workflow, repeatable, how are you addressing this for the future?
Um, right now, like I said, we're still in the discovery phase. However, we have always, accessibility has always been something that has been top of mind for Harper College and in our marketing department. We've always had the um, captions well before we had to for any video.
Hmm.
We have, included alt text when we've needed to. And we've always made sure that we were looking at the contrast of colors. So, for those who are visually impaired,
Hmm.
um, that they can see what we've actually produced.
Yep.
So that's always been top of mind, but really, as we're moving forward with this, it's truly just adopting those best practices, um, jotting down notes from what Lindsay is saying on this webinar, um, but adopting those best practices, talking with our colleagues at other institutions, so that we just do ensure that all of our assets, whatever we are putting out there, is compliant. So we're still, like I said, in the discovery phase, in the learning, working, trying, um, learning again. And, hopefully we can all sit around and, share some of our stories, at a later date.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think we're all here to learn together, right? And so the fact
Mhm.
that you're not only presenting, but also learning along the way is awesome. And we're all in higher ed. So if we stopped learning at any point, something would be a little broken with our callings there,
Exactly.
wouldn't it? There is a question in the chat that I think actually pertains to something Lindsay was just addressing a few minutes ago. The question is, are you automatically making all digital PDFs accessible, or are you auditing the content to see if it should be moved to a web page or isn't needed at all?
Um, in higher ed, it can be very challenging to convince somebody that a PDF is not the right solution because they are so portable. And that helps make people feel more comfortable with the different ways that they can use the content. So we definitely still rely on PDFs as a communication tool. We've tried to be more proactive about starting that training early with our faculty and staff, helping them understand the different content types and which ones work best for which purposes. We had a really beautifully timed website replatform as part of the process, and that was a glorious way to say, hey guys, guess what? We can't move your inaccessible PDFs. If you want us to make them accessible, we have to have a chat.
Mhm.
So we had, well, we in Extension are PDF, we are committed to our PDFs and our publications. So we were able to clean out about 50% of our duplicated content. So things that had been updated, but the old one hadn't been removed, or things like that in our PDF library when we made that website replatform and moved into Drupal. So that was very nice. And then as we go forward, one of the key things that guiding people to do is we won't duplicate. We won't have a web page version and a PDF version. We pick one or the other. And so that just helps kind of keep the scope in check so that we're not trying to maintain things inefficiently.
Mhm.
And if anybody has a way of automatically making all PDFs accessible, I'd love to know. Like, I want to know what that is. Because as I read that, I was like, we have spent a lot of time on this. Did we miss like the easy button?
I don't have an answer for you, but if somebody watching does, drop it in the
Yeah,
chat, please. That could be a good thing to drop in the chat there too. If you've got any like secret
yeah.
sauce kind of resources or
Mhm.
anything that has been helping you through this process, drop those in the chat. Let's all benefit from each other here, right? And I'm just gonna say, if I don't see Litho's name pop up in the chat at least one time, then I might get a
Anna,
little
if you
upset
guys
about
are
it.
going through your PDFs, is it kind
Yeah.
of everything coming down and then, re-upping, or how
Yes.
are you guys tackling that?
Right now, we are just taking them all down.
Yeah.
Now, will we reintroduce them at a later date that are, that where the PDFs are accessible? I don't have that answer right now. Um, but right now it is just removing those. We really do want, and also for a couple of reasons, not just with the accessibility factor, but one of the challenges, which I'm sure a lot of people have on this call as well, is it's if you make a change to a program, if you make a change to the curriculum, if you make any change, um, if you make a change on the website, that's instant, but you can't make that change that easily on PDFs. PDFs then become outdated. They don't have the most current information. So we really are trying to eliminate the PDFs as much as possible. But that's another question for another date with our web manager. They just want all those PDFs down right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mentioned earlier, we did a website rebuild as well, and we also went through the process of cleaning up the PDFs, getting the PDFs out of here, and
Mhm.
putting as much on the website as possible for, like you just said, Anna, easier updating, easier to
Mhm.
maintain, not duplicative, and more accessible.
Yes. Yes.
All right, we've got a few more questions popping up. We'll circle back to those in just a little bit here. I've got a few more of our other questions to get through first, I think. Um, AI. We all know that AI is a hot topic today, right? If you haven't heard of AI yet, you could lift the rock off the top of you and crawl out from underneath. That's okay. But where are you all seeing AI play a role in these accessibility processes, both today or for the future? Is that something either of your teams are using?
It's been helpful it, for clarity. So help break down posing that question to AI.
Mhm.
Um, you know, what do I need to do? It really then breaks it down. So like, here's what you need to do. So
Mhm.
it really it does help segment and make it very clear on what some of the steps are very
Yeah.
quickly. So that's how our team has been using it to really help either confirm, okay, we are on the right track, or, oh, wow, I didn't think about that, or that was an aspect that we hadn't considered. So we've been using it as a tool to help guide us as we are moving forward through this whole process.
Yeah. That's a great use case, I think. Lindsay, how about you guys?
I think an easy swing for AI is always anything that can be done in structured data. And WCAG is absolutely that. There's a ton of structure in those guidelines, and that's incredible. And it's super clearly spelled out. While there are some things that lend themselves to visual discretion, there are so many things where AI could just automatically be that easy button. One that I would look forward to the most is never writing alt text again and having AI tools that actually write good alt text. I don't
Mhm.
know if anybody's played with, when you drop a picture onto social media, the things it comes up with are pretty incredible for its automatically generated alt text. So if AI can do those repetitive structured tasks for us more better in the future, that I think is the biggest gain that we make in software.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And it's funny you mentioned the AI generated alt text.
Uh-huh.
I think we know a little something about that here at Litho if you're using Litho Dan. So for those of you listening who are using Litho Dan, talk to your CSMs about that. It's not fully available just yet, I don't think, unless somebody wants to correct me on that. I don't think it's fully available yet, but it is something that we're working on and should have out to you pretty soon. So more to come on that. But that's a great call out. That's one of those ways that, right, it could build in efficiency. It could just speed up that whole process and just take you right out of it so that you never have to worry about that ever again. AI can be a scary thing sometimes, right? Like we're still, some of us find ourselves still figuring it out, trying to figure out the best ways to use it. I think what you guys have just outlined, though, are very practical ways and very accessible ways today. Accessible, not in terms of what we're talking about here, but just easy to start with, right? To dive in and find ways to help it move your process along today. So for each of you, you find yourselves, again, like I started with, you find yourselves on different points of this spectrum today of where you are leading your teams to and where you all are heading with all of this. What would you define as good process? Progress. What does good progress realistically look like for each of you in 2026? Anna, you want to start us with that?
Um, for us, good progress is making sure that there's awareness at the institution so that everybody is aware of what needs to happen, that there's open, solid, good communication, not only within our department, but with our partner departments within the institution, and that we're just doing everything we can. So to just keep reviewing, keep those dialogues open,
Mhm.
Partnering with other areas of the college so that we are all just, we're all in this together. So at the end of the day, while it's very easy for me to say, oh, that's not marketing's problem. It's an institution's problem. It's an institution's concern. It's an institution's initiative. That we all need to be collaborating with each other, communicating with each other, assisting each other, helping people figure out what tools are working best for us and how can you use those. So I think it's just a matter of, for us, good progress would be, again, just as I said, doing everything we can do, partnering, being collaborative, and as they say, there's no dumb questions. Like, we are a safe place. Like, if you have a question, come and talk with us. I have, resources that I can share. You might have resources that you can share. So, really just cultivating that type of environment
Mhm.
across the institution.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's powerful. Lindsay?
Well, I mean, of course, my official answer has to be that the accessibility score on our website is going to be 100. But beyond
Well,
that,
that too. Okay, so that too.
That's implied. Sure.
people and our department heads are like, "What's your magic number?" We're like, "It's 100. It's fully compliant. That's the magic number." But more realistically, our the IT team has done a really good job of trying to work through software reviews for the platforms that our faculty and staff use the most right now to make sure that people have access to tools that will set them up for success. Because if you're starting out with a platform that cannot and will not make accessible content and it's going to have to be remediated, we're just kind of putting ourselves in the circle spinning down the hill on that problem. So trying to make sure that we're backing up to the beginning of the process and getting the right tools into people's hands is an area where I see the biggest gains this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Starting with the right tools.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've got some great questions that have been dropped in the chat. We've got a few minutes left here that I think we can start to dive into a few of these. So let me take a look at what we've got here. Let's see. All right. So other than education, pun intended, how do you make sure that other departments aren't using outdated or non-compliant files that may exist out there today?
On our main platforms, it's governance. You don't get access to the platform if you haven't completed the training, and if you are a repeat offender, you don't get to keep posting content. Um, so it's very much a compliance is required. It's not an above and beyond effort anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Anna, do you all have any systems in place for that?
Um, I'm not sure. And so my colleagues that are on this call are probably yelling at me from behind the scenes, but I like what Lindsay shared, and I want to make sure I'll double check with I'm sure on our website again, yes, if they're not being compliant, they won't be able to upload anything that isn't compliant.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Good, good, good. Um, all right. So another one here. Have you been able to scale, and this is perhaps your whole organization, or think of it within your team specifically, however you wish. Have you been able to scale ADA compliance without adding headcount so far today? And if so, do you have any suggestions on how other teams could do that as well? Lindsay, you just said you all hired an officer, so maybe
We
your
did.
answer is no.
So we did scale. We added, obviously, the university created that position and has done some big shifts over there. And then even on our team, we added another design position that we hadn't had previously because dealing with making PDFs accessible took so much more time. I think the alternative to scaling headcount is narrowing scope. So identifying of all the things that could be created, what are the most important, and do we have the resources to create them efficiently?
Yeah.
yeah, we haven't, from it to my knowledge, haven't necessarily hired anybody whose specific job is the compliance.
Mhm.
However, um, we have identified different individuals within the college. In our department, we're all focused on it, but there are a few people who are um, this is their life. And we are all just kind of dividing and conquering, especially from a marketing standpoint.
Mhm.
We've all just really take a look at, what we're responsible for and how we can make sure that that we are working towards compliance or are compliant, and what does that look like? What does that mean? What additional tools, resources, et cetera, we need in order to go forward, not only to have initial compliance, but then maintain that.
Mhm. I think kind of combining what both of you have said there, that's sort of an optimal model for scaling this without adding headcount, right? You take
Mhm.
Lindsay's commentary on prioritizing the work and saying, here are the things we have to do first. Here are the things that can be done second, third, etc. Starting with that top of the list, right? And then Anna, to your point, divvy up the work. It's going to, instead of spreading giving this all to one person or one team, how do we get buy-in? How do we get involvement from multiple people, multiple teams, all of that, so that the entire organization is tracking alongside together? To me, that sounds scalable. Great context. Thank you both. More practical question, since both of you are using Litho to manage your teams today, have you included a question on your request forms about how projects will be used so that you can figure out if the PDF, going back to PDFs here, needs to be accessible? Or are you automatically making the PDFs accessible anyway?
Go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say, we have not added that question. That's an interesting point. So whoever asked that, thank you. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. We are just moving towards making anything accessible. So, we even that's what we're just
Mhm.
working towards
So
is
your approach is not necessarily caring on the front end. Does it need to be or does it not? You're taking the approach of everything needs to be
yes,
accessible. So
that's what
therefore,
yes,
everything will be accessible moving
yes.
forward.
Now, of course, as you have further conversations on an initiative, a project, a campaign, there's always um, special needs or something that is unique to that particular initiative.
Mhm.
So we may address some things differently on a case by case, but
Yeah.
overall, we want to make sure that everything's accessible.
Yeah. I think that's a wise way to move forward.
Mhm.
Lindsay, any other context on your side?
Same boat. I can't tell you how many questions I've answered in the last 6 months about, but what about if I'm only, what if this is only for me? I'm not gonna share it. I'm gonna email it to people. I'm not putting it on the website. Um, since it has to be everything, even in our shared internal file storage that the public won't ever access, it's all materials. So we've tried really hard to convince everyone that it's all digital content we create all the time.
Makes sense to me. Um, let's see. A couple more questions here. We've got just like 2 minutes left, so let's rapid fire here. What tools are you using today to remediate PDFs for accessibility?
Hot take, we try not to. We we will almost always recreate from scratch versus remediating pre-existing content that we don't have source files for. We actually did some testing when we started this, and remediation was taking us approximately 43% longer than remaking it from scratch. And in terms of file size, we got we got really lean on how we design some of those things and being really choosy about how many graphics we include and how much variety we add to try to keep it cleaner, simpler, easier to make accessible, and then also keep that file size at a manageable limit.
Yeah, hot take. I like it, but you've got the data to back it up, so that's really cool. All right, can you speak to how Litho is helping with governance and compliance today?
Think the biggest help is just that it is a consistent starting point, and we try to eliminate unnecessary decisions wherever possible. So, do I have to make this accessible? Yes. Can I do that? Here are the options we can do. Just making it really clear up front what's available and what's kind of out of bounds per se has helped us a ton. And then, hmm, I can't I understand that I can't just only ever fangirl about proofs, but proofs and the way that that was rebuilt in Litho
Sure you can.
just changed so much for us. And the ability to loop in anybody at any point in that process to make sure that all of the feedback is being covered and that we're just taking care of all of it at one point rather than publishing it and going, oopsie. That's such a great tool in our workflow.
Yeah, I guess I probably wasn't really keen in on the question. Yeah, definitely. Start having nothing can get done in our through the marketing department without coming in through Litho.
Mm.
That's hard stop.
If it's not in
So,
Litho,
I
it
mean,
doesn't
unless you're the
exist.
president of college and you call and say, "Can you do this?" We're like, "Sure." But I always say there's only one person that can, get around the rules. But so everyone has to go through Litho. So yes, we have to know exactly what it is they're doing, how it's going to be used. So that's where we have the starting point for all the questions.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah. And then that way it's trackable, it's traceable, you've got it. I bet you even when the president calls, somebody's still putting it into
Oh,
Litho.
somebody still does. She doesn't. Somebody does. She doesn't.
Yep, I remember that. We used to do that same thing too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are a minute over time here, so thanks for hanging out for an extra minute. And those of you attending, thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Anna. I think it's been a great conversation. Hopefully, there's been some wisdom that everybody's gained here, some notes jotted down, some good next steps, things to kind of go back and talk with your teams about. Of course, if you've got more questions about how to scale this or ways that Litho can help, talk to your customer success manager if you're currently a customer. If not, we've got a great sales team who would love to talk to you as well. But otherwise, thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Good to
Thank
see you guys.
you.